What's up you guys, welcome back to another brand new video my friends. So in this video I will say you guys on how to breed this beautiful fish which is also known as the betta fish. So basically these fish are really popular among each one of you guys who own fish and in the aquarium hobby right now. So you guys might wonder a step ahead of how can we successfully breed this fish. So guys, basically I have taken some 5 key points to this video and I will be focusing on that exact key points which you guys should know, and I will not speak anything out of these key points. So watch this video until the end because every word which I say you guys might be really important if you're hoping to breed your betta fish. So what are we waiting for guys? So let's get started with number one. Number one is conditioning your bettas. So this is really important because most of the breeders do that is that they purchase their pair and they don't condition your fish. So you might guys not even heard about this. Conditioning is the key to your breeding bettas because in the fry which you have will not be healthy if the pair is not healthy. So the basic key thing is to keep the pair healthy before you attempt to breed them. So I think you guys might not were familiar with this before, but now listen to this guys. Conditioning is really important. So let me just say you guys the 2 most important thing about conditioning your betta fish. So the number one is the food. The food which you provide them is really important before you breed your fish. So basically if you go for high protein food which are like the mosquito larvae and bloodworms and brine shrimp and chibifex worms, these high protein food contains the exact amount of protein which you guys should provide for your betta fish. It's really important because if you feed them a high quality food, the pair will be healthy, which means the fry you get will be definitely healthy and they will be really good fry. So if you want healthy fry, you want to attempt a good breeding, you probably gonna feed them a high quality protein food. So make sure you keep that in mind. So the next step is the water quality. So clean their water, right? Don't keep their water with their waste, which probably there will be an ammonia spike definitely because when the waste get reload on their containers, they will probably get sick, fin rotting, probably many diseases, and probably your fish will die. So I don't want that to happen probably. So make sure you keep your fish really clean in a clean container when you bring your pair home before you attempt breeding. So remember, number one is conditioning your pair before breeding. So let's go for number 2. Number 2 is set up for breeding. So setting up for breeding is another important thing. So after you condition your bettas by feeding them high quality food and cleaning their water, next up is set them up for breeding. So this is really important. When you're choosing your pairs for breeding, make sure you choose the female and the male with exactly same sizes, because if you go for the male too much big and the female too much small, they will not probably do that well. And if you go for a female which is too big than the male will be probably afraid of the female which you breed. So make sure you keep that in mind and choose the pair which are exactly the same size. So the next up important thing is that when you just set them up for breeding, you have to proceed this thing. So you can either go for the keeping 2 transparent containers and keep the male and the female and let them be observed in side by side and then dump both onto their breeding container. But in my experience, I wouldn't recommend to you guys to do that. So I will really highly recommend for you guys to keep your betta pairs in ideally separate containers, which means your male will have to be more to the breeding container and the female will have to be placed in a transparent container, and you have to put that into your breeding container. So I will show you guys a picture right here so you guys might now be familiar. I think guys now you might get how familiar with that in order to set up your pair for breeding. So after you set up your male betta and a female betta, the next up is that adding some kind of thing for your male to build his bubble nest. So this is really important. So you can probably go for the Indian almond leaf, that will be probably fine, but I wouldn't recommend it, but you can probably go for it. It's not bad, but most of the breeders do that. But in my opinion, the Indian almond leaf usually sinks, right? It usually sinks to the bottom when the water gets soaked up, so I wouldn't recommend that. So if you use a bubble wrap or a hard polythene, it would really be fine because they never sink. So the bubble wrap is the number one thing which I recommend to add for the male to build his bubble nest, because they float. They never sink. Even if you just keep that inside water, they never sink, because that's the material which you need in order for your male to build his bubble nest. So the next up thing is that the water in which your pair will be set up for breeding might also be really good and clean. So make sure you keep that in mind, and also make sure you add the tonic water which I mentioned in my previous video on how to condition your bettas for breeding, because that water will exactly contain the really amount of pH levels will be balanced, and the exact thing which is really important, which means encouraging your pair for breeding, will be really happen by that tonic water. So that tonic water, let me just simply say you guys how to make it. So basically take some dried Indian almond leaf and dried banana leaves and boil that both in a water for about probably like 1 hour. So after 1 hour you boil it, simply take that water and add a little amount. So in my previous video I have mentioned that how should you add the water in equal levels. Let's focus on the number 3, which will be separating the females. So before you separate the females, you have to give them some time in order for the male to know the female and for the female to know the male for about 24 hours. So you have to keep them covered with a wooden plank or something else, because they need to have their own privacy. Next up, if you do that, then after 24 hours you have to separate the females. So this is really important, because the male will be probably have built his bubble nest, and you have to do this really slowly and gently, because if you just do that really fast, you will probably break the bubble nest and it will be a dumpster, right? You don't have to make it happen. I will say you guys on how to exactly do that. Take the container slowly out of the water and just catch the female safely and add him to his breeding container. So that's the way you have to add. Don't just grab it and just add it, because it will probably break the bubble nest, which will be really devastating, and the male probably might be little bit angry, and it can be really go for a fight with the male and the female. So do that really safely, and when you add the female to your male's breeding container, probably there will be some chasing occurring, so don't worry about that. So that's the chasing ritual of the betta fish. So give them some time. When you release your female, cover the container with some kind of wooden plank or anything, and let them give them some more time which you gave previously then. So probably you had to give them like 48 hours, and after 48 hours you can really safely remove that and check whether the female have successfully laid her eggs, because this is the most important thing which you have to check up. If the female hasn't laid their eggs, or sometimes the female will be died, or sometimes the male will have probably eat the eggs, guys, this is really normal, because every betta breeding is not successful. There sometimes can be females which lay their eggs, sometimes they doesn't lay their eggs, always lay unfertilized eggs. Egg eaters, there can be fighters which every time attacks the females, so that's normally fine, because there can be bettas like that. So guys, if that keeps happening, go for another pair, because every betta is not successful, as I mentioned. So the next step, number 4, is removing the male. So before you do that, as soon as you remove the female, you have to again keep a cover which you replaced on the top of your container, because the male needs to have his privacy and he should not be disturbed, right? You don't want to catch your betta, you don't want to disturb him, because he needs to have his own security and privacy in order to care for the eggs. So once you cover it, leave it for about like 2 days, right? For about like 2 days or 3 days, probably the fry will then hatch. Until then, don't go for feed your bettas, right? When the eggs are laid by the female, if you feed, right, this is the thing which is really important, right? If you feed your betta male while the eggs are laid, probably he will eat up all the eggs, right? You don't want this thing happening. So exactly focus. Do not ever feed your male betta once the eggs are laid. So keep that in mind. When you place the cover for about like go for like 3 days, because it will take 3 days for the fry to hatch. So until then, don't feed the male, right? You don't want the male to feed. But before breeding, you have to feed both the female and the male a high quality protein food, because as I mentioned in conditioning, you have to feed them and make them in a good optimum breeding condition. So once the eggs are hatched after about 4 days, when the fry start free swimming, you can probably remove the male, right? So the male doesn't need anymore, because he have done his job finally, and you have to remove the male. Even this thing has to be done slowly, because while netting, the fry can really catch on it. If you just remove the male from the hand, it might be really easy for you guys. After removing the male, the fry should be free swimming. On the 4th day, you should remove the male when the fry start free swimming. So when this happens, you need to be prepared, right? So I mean, go for this, right? So when the fry start swimming on the next day, on this day, prepare a brine shrimp hatchery, because so guys, it will be probably hatching after about 24 hours. So when this happens, you have to feed the fry, because it's really important. You not need to leave them hungry, because if they were hungry, they will probably be dead. Sometimes you might be wondering, why has my fry disappeared? Why have they died? Mass amount of fry has been dead. So that's the important thing. Feed them, right? That's what you will make your mistake. And most important, I gotta say guys, don't go for the hard-boiled egg. It's a toxic. Never ever go for it, because it does nothing. It probably does nothing. Your fry will not eat it, because it will rotten your tank. Because guys, every fry born will be carnivores, right? They are not herbivores. Probably they will feed on everything which is moving, tiny particles. So baby brine shrimp, and you can give them moina. The moina culture is, I will exactly do another video on how to prepare the moina and actually how to culture it. You can give them paramecia, also known by the name of infusoria. So you can give those live food. Live food works perfectly, as I mentioned, for bettas or even your fries. So feed them about 4 or 3 times a day, because they need a good amount of food. So guys, when you feed them, make sure you doesn't overfeed, because when the tank gets overfeed and every pollutant stuffs remain in that tank, your fry can really die. So I mean, take a small oxygen pipe which is provided for your airway pump. I mean, take a small pump tube and really siphon the water really gently and slowly by removing the small amount of waste from the tank or the container, whatever. I mean, make sure you do not suck any of the fry, because if you suck any of the fry, they will probably be dead. You don't want that to happen. So do that gently and slowly. So, and next up is growing your fry. So I mean, go for that procedure, right? So feeding up the fry is really important. So, and that's what it's all about. So that's it guys, about number 5, feeding your betta fry. So as I mentioned, go for live food. Don't go for the hard-boiled egg. It's really toxic, right? Keep that in mind. It's toxic. Never ever go for hard-boiled egg. It will not really be successful, and you will probably have killed babies on the next day, because every fry is carnivores. They will feed on live food. Go for live food. Moina, baby brine shrimp, even infusoria or paramecia. Infusoria and paramecia are really easy to culture. All you gotta do is take an empty jar, add a lettuce leaf or add some yeast. You can do both those methods and cover the top part and leave for about 7 days, and there you have your culture of infusoria. Just grab a pinch and feed them 3 times a day, and you will grow your fry day by day. And when they reach about 1 month, you can probably give them the live food or the food which you continue to give them, some kind of high quality pellets or flake food. You can give any of the food when they reach 1 month. So until then, go for the live food which I mentioned. When they reach about like 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, you can probably give them microworms and little bit normal size brine shrimp. They will really perfectly work fine. So that's it guys, it's time to wrap up this video. I talked about everything about you guys should know on how to breed this fish successfully. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video guys. If you did enjoy, make sure to click the like button by supporting me. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell guys. So that's it for today. So see you guys on my next video guys. Peace, have a nice day.